We don't play the social game. We are social. Power 98.5. You're listening to Power 98.5, powered by United Angels Dream, your #1 resource for public relations, entertainment, and multimedia. Contact them today at unitedangelsdream.com.
Prepare yourself. Okay, let's go.
Mr. Aaron Williamson, what's the good word for today?
Oh, the good word. There's so much good word. It's a good training day. It's hot in Vegas, and we're on the air live with you.
Live with each other, and we've got Matt Grace with us today.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for setting this up. I'm super excited.
Yeah, Matt's a good dude. He's got a great story, and I'm looking forward to him getting on here and sharing it with everybody because I think a lot of people can benefit from what he's going to say.
Well, Matt, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
Aloha, Hawaiian time, right?
Hey, aloha from Hawaii. That's right. Sitting on Oahu.
Bring us up to speed. What's going on with you during this time, pandemic, and before we get into all the other good stuff that's happening with you, your book, being a firefighter and coach, what are you doing during this downtime, or even if it is a downtime for you?
This downtime for me is just focusing on family, being present. I actually live in right now. Being in Hawaii is coming back home for me, so it's a reprieve from everything that's going on in Sacramento, California. Excuse me, which is where I'm currently residing. So I just came back home here to Hawaii to kind of escape a little bit, be with family, and be able to go to the beach again. Be able to get in Hawaii, we call it mana, your spirit. And coming home to be filled back up again just, man, makes me feel so much better.
Where do I begin? And to let everyone know, this is Aaron's first episode with us live on air with Stephen Cuoco on Power 98.5. He's an awesome guy, and even with all of his gifts and talents that the world has seen, and they're going to find out even more of what he's capable of. Aaron, I truly want to thank you for taking this opportunity to allow yourself to be here and to really grab hold of this opportunity, and once again, bringing Matt to the table. And we're gonna find out what your set skills are now in radio.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's I'm grateful to be on the show and be able to have this platform to share some amazing stories, some inspirational stories, and just kind of shed some light on some things that happened in my life and people who have inspired me. And that's really what it's all about, just being the change.
Well, don't hesitate to chime in. You don't have to wait until I'm done. Like anything else, we'll just bounce off of each other's energy. And I don't want you to be on the sideline. So, you're side by side with me on this. With that being said, Matt, you are a retired Navy veteran. Aaron, you are a Marine veteran. What do you guys have in common?
The understanding of camaraderie and hardship, overcoming obstacles, mental fortitude, survival, strength, courage, tenacity, perseverance, you name it.
All of that. Everything that Aaron said, it's perseverance. And we're being in the military, we're also given the gift of knowing what's most valuable in life, and we're able to remind that the people that sometimes hey, every day is a gift. Not every day is gonna come to you, and be present in the one that you have and love those around you and make it known to them that you care.
Hurrah.
I like that. And currently, Matt, you are a firefighter. And
I am. I'm
an NLP coach.
And an NLP coach, yeah. Helping people overcome their obstacles. Being a firefighter is not that much different than being in the military. As a rescue member in the Navy, worked with the special operations community. And for me, the transition to being a firefighter was pretty natural. You know, the camaraderie, the never know what's going to happen around the corner, being able to just go from 0 to 100. I liked that aspect of it. And also the service, you know, just because Aaron and I are veterans doesn't mean that we stop serving. And that's a lot of my motivation to both being a firefighter and being a coach.
Aaron, you have anything?
I just want to let him talk a little bit more to get into the meat of it, because this is I'm still learning a little bit about his line of work too, because I'm not familiar with the rescue swimmer field. So I'm interested to hear him.
Absolutely. So let me explain that in the Navy, we are, everybody knows, you know, a lot of people have seen the movie The Guardian with Ashton Kutcher highlighting the Coast Guard rescue swimmers, which are awesome guys. The difference about being a Navy rescue swimmer is we launch from 2 different platforms. By launch, I mean get into the water from different platforms. In the Navy, every ship has to have 2 rescue swimmers, surface guys. We're known as surface rescue swimmers, SRS. And we also have air rescue swimmers, ARS, the guys that they deploy from helicopters. So I was a surface rescue swimmer guy. So I was on the ships. And our main job is to rescue pilots who eject. That's the main difference between Navy rescue swimmers and Coast Guard rescue swimmers, is that we have the specialized training to go into the ocean and rescue pilots out of their parachutes, which is super, super technical. Because when pilots eject, they also eject out of their seats. I don't know if you guys have ever seen pictures of that. I know Top Gun, they highlight that area where Goose has to eject, Maverick eject, and they land into the water. And the guys who actually go to get them are Navy rescue swimmers. And that's the main function that we do. But we also support civilians as well. If there's a civilian vessel in the ocean that is in need of assistance, they'll deploy us. For surface guys on Navy ships, we are lowered down from the ship into the ocean. That's one way. And then also we're lowered into the ocean by Zodiac, rigid hull inflatable boats that we have. They're highlighted in the, you know, if you ever see like Navy SEALs going in the water, we use similar boats to them. Of course, theirs are a lot faster. So ours are a lower level of that, but it's basically the same idea. It's just a rubber boat that bounces along the ocean and gets us to where we need to go to make our rescues.
I don't know if I'm jumping the gun asking this question, but what was it that enticed you to get into rescue swimming with the Navy versus some of the other branches?
Man, that's a really good question, Aaron. And you know, I joined the Navy. I speak about this in the book that I've written. I joined the Navy to be an EOD technician because, you know, blowing stuff up is cool, right? And the ultimate reason why I joined the Navy, and this is going to sound funny to a lot of different people because people join the military for different reasons, just like I'm sure that you have. I joined the Navy to come back home to Hawaii. Going through high school, I ended up homeless for a little while. Not homeless in the aspect that I didn't have anywhere to live. I just didn't have a home. I bounced around a little bit, and eventually my father, who I didn't really grow up with, he lived in Reno, Nevada. So he took me in Reno. I finished out high school there from the middle of my junior year to senior year, and I just wanted to come back home to Hawaii where my heart was. And so I joined the Navy so I could eventually one day end up in Pearl Harbor. And going through the process, the whole recruiting process, I'm like, man, EOD is cool. Let me do that. but my math wasn't as strong as it should have been for the ASVAB. I was short by 5 points. So the recruiter said, hey, come into the Navy, be a firefighter, which is a damage controlman, the Navy's version of a firefighter. And later on, you can go into the OD program. Okay, cool. Well, I got to my first ship and I saw this guy running down the hangar bay wearing black wetsuit, fins in his hands, and the guy was just trucking. Like, he knew where he was going, and it just clicked for me. It's like, that right there is what I want to do. And there's those moments in life where you just know, and that was one of the moments for me. The irony is, when I was 10 years old, I had a near drowning out here on Maui at Honokaha Valley, out there with my cousins. And that was an introduction of power for me by what the ocean can do. I was bouncing off the bottom. I couldn't breathe. I came up just to grab another breath of air, right back down. Another wave hit me, and I ended up passing out under the water. And then I came to on my bodyboard, and the water was flat like a lake. And it took me a minute to realize actually where I was. And then I swam in, and all my cousins were wondering, hey, Matt, where were you? I was like, I don't know. I was out there. And I believe that was a moment for me to prepare and to know what the ocean would be. And it's almost like the ocean was welcoming me. Hey, this is us having a meeting. Are you worthy for what I have planned for you? And then later on, I became a rescue swimmer. It's crazy.
Yeah, the ocean's a beast. I actually just lost one of my really close friends last month. He got pulled out in a riptide saving his son. And he's a big dude, bigger than life, 6'6", almost 300 pounds, just a ginormous guy. And it took him under like it was nothing. So I can relate to that.
Yeah, the ocean is powerful. A lot of people underestimate the ocean. As just being on the beach over here, going to some of the beaches, I've made rescues just because, people come to Hawaii from the mainland, they're not prepared how powerful the ocean is, and it can take you out, and before you know it, you're succumbed to the depths of it.
Yeah.
I'll give you credit for doing that, though. I won't go out in the ocean, to be honest. I'll put my feet in the water and that's it. Seriously. Because it doesn't matter how good of a swimmer you are. No one is a match, not even a ship, for water.
No, it's one of the greatest moments I ever had as a rescue swimmer was I was on the USS Cushing at the time, and we were on deployment. We were cruising, and the captain had a real good rapport with myself and one of the other swimmers because there's only two. And he asked me, he's like, "Hey, do you want to go swimming?" I said, "Yeah, I want to go swim. We're out in the middle of the ocean. That's what I'm here for." And he stopped. He's like, "Okay, well, when we sound man overboard, because we want to make a drill out of it, man overboard, man overboard." Wasn't until I realized where we were, and to just kind of make things kind of come full circle from that moment of being held down under the ocean to scraping, clawing for breath, for air, for life, to being lowered over the ship, and I was able to swim over the Marianas Trench. And that's one of the deepest parts of the ocean. It's 7 miles deep plus. To be out there all by myself, just all alone, knowing that nobody's ever been that deep before. Nobody's ever been down to the bottom of that ocean. Just to lay there floating and seeing the sun just piercing through, and it was so surreal for me. I think that for me, ultimately, that was the culmination of my rescue swimming career. Aside from the other stuff I've done, that for me was one of the most beautiful, serene moments where I was able to also experience the peace of what the ocean brings. Not only the you could say the power of it, and it was just amazing. It's sometimes I even get caught up. It's hard to explain how peaceful that was for me.
It sounds pretty surreal.
Yeah.
So kind of jumping into something here, because you have this phrase that you've coined called "release your hero."
Yeah.
And can you explain kind of what that means and how you came about that?
Yeah, this is right into the emotion part of this, which is a beautiful thing, which is why I wanted to be on here, why I'm so thankful to share this message. Release your hero for me goes back to the moment I had to release my hero. Because as a Navy rescue swimmer, as a firefighter, I'm the hero for everyone else. Everybody expects me to be there for them when they call 911. Hey, Johnny, on spot. Somebody needs help in the ocean. I was there. But for many years, I was battling post-traumatic stress. I came back from Afghanistan in 2005, and I came back with that gift, right? And I'll get into it later on, if we get into it, why I call it a gift, because I found it to be that. On the other side of all the pain, it truly is a gift. But there was a moment when I couldn't handle the cries of my daughter. It would trigger me. It was a trigger for me. And I knew it, and I was afraid of it. I was afraid of being a danger, because I was previously married before to my, and we had a daughter, and I discovered it then with my oldest, and I was afraid. I couldn't be around there. It's like, what's going on here? I can't be around her when she cries. And because of post-traumatic stress and everything, that relationship, it ended. It ended horribly, and ended up being a tumultuous divorce that it was crushing. It was, it was depleting down to my soul. And coming out of that relationship, still going through PTSD, feeling all the emotions that come along with that: self-doubt, insecurity, pain, not knowing which way is up, just dizzy all the time, not knowing your direction. I ended up getting into another relationship, and I was like, man, this is going to be beautiful. This is new. And we ended up having another child, ended up having another girl, my little baby. And the same thing happened to me again. I thought I was better. I thought I was past all my post-traumatic stress issues and everything, the anxiety, the depression that came with all of it. But I was very wrong. I was very, very wrong. And the same thing happened all over again. My daughter would cry, and I was like, I can't do this. And I told my wife, I'm like, hey, I need help. We need to get a sitter or a nanny or something to be home with me. And I didn't say why. I didn't say why. I just said, I'm nervous. I can't handle it. Which was true. But there was also that fear in the back of my mind, like, what would happen? What would happen? And, my wife was a nurse. She was working hours, and I was a firefighter. I'd work my shifts for 2 days, and I would come home for 2 days. And on those 2 days, one of those days I was left alone with my 5-month-old daughter. And she began to cry. And I put her in the bedroom. I'm like, you need to go in there. I couldn't be in the same room. And then I snapped. This is I always get emotional at this part. which is beautiful because it's real. And I went into the bedroom. My little daughter was laying face down on the bed, and I pushed her head into the bed so she wasn't crying anymore. And as soon as I did that, I snapped. Something in me, that instinct, that father instinct, I snapped out of it. And I fell to the floor. I fell to the floor and I sat beside her. And I wept and I wept as she cried on the bed right beside me. And at that moment, I was going to take my own life. I was fully prepared. Fully prepared. I was like, this is it. I don't deserve to live after what I've just done. And I got up and I was walking to the kitchen to do what I had intended. And I looked back at my daughter one more time. And that was the moment. That was the moment for me. Matt, no, don't do this. Your daughter needs you. Your daughter needs you. It's time for you to do something. You have to act. You have to do something now to change. And it was at that moment, Aaron and Steve, when I released my hero, I became the hero for myself so my daughter could live.
That's intense. That's powerful stuff. How's your relationship with her now?
It's beautiful. My oldest daughter, my little baby girl, man, they're my angels. They're my angels, and they saved me. It wasn't, anything else. It was them. And because of that, I was able to wake up that spirit within me, that hero within myself, to be able to turn everything around and make everything that was so horrible. I had to, and this is what I write about in my book, is that how I used my military training as a rescue swimmer and a firefighter to save myself. And I did just that. It's like, I flashed back to when I was in SAR school, search and rescue school. And there's a moment in search and rescue school, because we train to get pilots out of their parachutes, where we have to go underneath the parachute and they roll you up in the parachute and you have to find your way out. Well, you're being held under the water and the parachute wrapped up without air. And they teach you, look for the shine. Because as you're underwater, you're looking up into the parachute. The little shiny spots that look like mirrors are where the air is. And what you do is you punch up into that air bubble and you're able to breathe. And it gives you enough air to find the apex of the parachute and pull yourself out and save yourself. And that's what I continually did then, and I continue to do now, is, hey, look for the shine. Look for the shine in those situations where you're drowning, where you're out of air, where you don't have any breath, and you feel like life is just pulling you down. Look for the shine. And, when I look at my girls, I see the shine.
You found your purpose to keep going on and to try and heal and get better. And
yeah,
for everyone listening, you might have heard Matt say post-traumatic stress a few times, and he wasn't calling it post-traumatic stress disorder because it's not a disorder. It's not a disease. It's just something that, depending on what tragedies you go through, some people experience this worse than others. But the question I'm about to ask Matt is going to lead into where I'm going with this. But you could have post-traumatic stress hidden in different layers, just even from being a child, and certain situations in your life that you go through, especially when you're in a combat environment or an environment where loss of life or harm or just things that really affect your psyche. It can be triggered. So I wanted to ask Matt, getting into the whole post-traumatic stress side of it, what was the trigger that sparked your post-traumatic stress? What was it that led you down this road to release your hero?
That's an excellent question, and you nailed it on the head. There's a misconception out there that people think it can only be one thing. It can only be one thing, like, oh, I got shot at, I have post-traumatic stress. What people don't realize is that PTS, and I love that you say, leave out the D, because I do that too. Is not a disorder. We weren't born with this. It's something that happens to us. And for me, mine was cumulative. It started when I was young. The foundation of my childhood was built on drug and alcohol abuse, and at times physical abuse, and plenty of verbal abuse. And the first moment for me, and I'm going to preface this with saying that I have a beautiful relationship with my parents now. I was able to heal a lot of everything that we went through, but at the time when I was a child, I was living it. And there was one specific moment where everything kicked off for me. Was my dad. He was a drinker. And he was drunk. My mom went to pick him up, and we were driving. So my mom was driving. My dad was in the passenger seat. I was sitting directly behind him, and my little brother was in the seat to my left in his car seat. He was maybe 5-6 months old, I believe, at the time. And my dad, my stepdad, who I grew up with, big Hawaiian guy. His hands are twice the thickness of mine even now. And he hit her. He hit my mom, and it wasn't even a hard, fast hit. It was just enough because he's big, just enough to make her bleed. Her nose was bloody, her face was bloody. Everything. It was the first time I've ever seen anything so violent. And my mom pulled over to the side of the road, and my dad reached in the back and was grabbing my little brother out of the car seat, but he was so inebriated he couldn't work the car seat. And my mom told me, she leaned back and looked at me. She said, "Matt, don't let him take your brother." Whew. And what was I going to do? I felt completely helpless, vulnerable. I was frozen. What am I going to do to this guy who just caved your face in? How am I going to save my brother? And I was frozen. And that was the catalyst. And, ironically enough, later on, I discovered more things about the path of my life because of this event. But that was the first thing that happened to me. And what I learned also going through all that, the drug abuse and alcohol abuse, is subconsciously, on a subconscious level, I was absorbing all of this. I was absorbing all the pain. I was absorbing all of the insecurity. I was absorbing all of the hostility, the anger, the rage that came with all of this. And that doesn't go away. You have to address it. And when I went into the military, well, you going through the military, they put you in stressful environments. And what happened for me when, going through these situations is it just compounded. It got deeper. It got stronger. And the more I tried to push it down, the more it woke up. And, I went to Afghanistan in 2005, and I was in the reserves at the time. I was working at SDV Team 1, SEAL Delivery Vehicle Team 1 out here in Pearl Harbor, parent command under SEAL Team 17 in Coronado. And that was a time when everybody was shorthanded in Afghanistan. So they started pulling onesies and twosies out of the reserves. with really no clear plan for the people they were pulling out. And so I ended up being attached to a provincial reconstruction team, a CB unit, also made up of other reservists, and went to Afghanistan. And, being over there, we drove around a lot, but we weren't in up armored Humvees. We were in Toyota Helix trucks. And what happened to me is, of course, at first, like, man, I don't want to go out there. I'm going to get blown up. I'm going to be driving down the road. I'm going to see something on the left that doesn't look right. I'm going to go to the left, and that's where the IED is going to be. Or I'm driving down the road, and here comes a motorcyclist up behind me, and he's going to blow me up. I was always super aware of what was around me, driving through bazaars, looking. It was great, like little kids carrying around AK-47s, and I became a road addict. I became an Afghanistan road addict, addicted to being out there, addicted to the adrenaline rush of being able to go outside the wire nearly every day and be able to come back safe. But to the point where Aaron and Steve, I couldn't sit on base. I had to get out there. I had to do something. I couldn't sit around. And I found a couple guys in the Army who were part of the Ford escort team for the CG. So they would go out and they would run routes and make sure that everything was okay. And all we were carrying was, an M4 with a P226 9mm. And I brought all that home with me. And next thing I knew, I started having heart palpitations. My face would go numb. I'd come back and I'd be running with the SEALs, the SDV, and I'm like, man, I'm a rescue swimmer. I'm like the lowest guy on the food chain, right? So I got to keep up with all these guys. I got to perform. I got to do as best I can to be at least at their level, if not the same level or higher. And what would happen to me, we would go on the runs from the compound. I would start having these heart tremors. Like my heart would just start pounding out of his chest. I feel like I was going to fall out. And in the military, there's a stigma of weakness. And, they tell you, hey, show no weakness. It pays to be a winner. Put out, hoo-yah. And so when these things would happen to me, I would just bend over and tie my shoe. And all the guys would run by, and some of them would say, hey, man, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'll catch up with you. And I would walk into the bushes and lay down and wait to die. I would just wait for death to consume me. And I would lay there for a while, and then I would get up and I would have a major pounding headache, a migraine headache, and I would still be trembling for the rest of the day. And, to hide this fact, because I had to stay in shape, but I couldn't run in groups. So, okay, Matt, how are you going to fix this problem? Because, in the military, as a rescue swimmer, as a firefighter, I'm a problem solver. How am I going to do this? How am I going to stay in shape so I can perform? But yet, so nobody knows. So I would put on my Oakleys and I would go for a run at nighttime. I would go running when it's dark, where nobody could see me, where I was in the shadows, where I felt like I could move that much faster. And then I would come home. And that was how I hid it. That's how I kept it a secret until that day. For years, for 10 years, I did this. For 10 years, from 2005 to 2015. Until that moment, I had to release my hero.
Yeah, you can only hide stuff for so long before it eventually peeks its nasty head out, especially dealing with that environment over there. That, you said being a road junkie, that's a huge issue. I see a lot of veterans coming back to the States after they're deployed, having to deal with, because you're 100 miles an hour, 24/7 in danger, constantly trying to look over your shoulder, making sure you're keeping safe, watching your buddies back. And then you get to the States, and it comes to a screeching halt, and then it becomes a boring life, no adrenaline, and you got to figure out, all right, what now? This is I'm ready to go back overseas. It's definitely a little mental game that people have to figure out how to play. But you mentioned, when we were talking yesterday, you mentioned something about neuro-linguistics. I'm not familiar with it. Actually, I think Steven's familiar with it, but I think that's a fascinating thing to discuss, because I don't believe a lot of people know what that is. I mean, I'm not very familiar with it. And but you said it helped you quite a bit.
It did. It and the background on that is, my last deployment, I was in the Philippines, down there in southern Mindanao. A lot of people don't know that there's still a lot of stuff going on down there, and we were down there doing FID, foreign internal defense, with the Filipino Navy SEAL team down there, and it was my job to take care of the Zodiacs. So the guys that I was with, we were with Marine Recon. We had Navy SEALs with us, of course, and we had some Army MIST guys, some intelligence guys with us for a little while, in and out. And it was my job to take care of the Zodiacs, and we only had 2. And we're out in the middle of the jungle, right, away from everything. Though everything that we did was by Zodiac or by helicopter. That was it. And I didn't have that much training on how to really keep them up. Before we deployed, they sent me to outboard motor school so I could learn how to take care of them and stuff. I had experience working with them when I was working on ships, deploying on Zodiacs as a swimmer. But my confidence wasn't there. My confidence wasn't there because I never really had to fix one in an emergency situation. So team guys being team guys, they want to have fun. Right? No matter where they are, they want to have fun. That's kind of what they're known for. That's what they get flack for from other branches. Like, so guys, they always just want to go out there and suntan, and that's about it, play in the ocean. Well, part of that's true because you have to have fun. But so they took one of the Zodiacs out, and I didn't know what was going on. So I was walking down to the boat shack, and I was like, where's the other Zod? So one of the recon guys walking by, and I said, hey man, where's the other Zod? And they're like, oh, the guys took it out. They're trying to barefoot ski. They're trying to barefoot ski. We only got 2 Zodiacs, man. Like, that's
such a Navy SEAL thing to do right there.
It is. It's such a team guy thing to do. And I'm like, so instantly, I'm like, what the F, right? Like, what if this thing breaks? So my insecurities, everything started kicking in, and I got pissed off because of that. And I walked up to our house because we all lived in the same house. Our RLT wanted everybody to be together, and I love that guy. And I walk up there, and I'm so pissed. I'm so pissed when I get to every step I was taking to the house. I got more and more angry. So by the time we got there, he opened up the door, and all I could say was, "No more fun time, no more fun time." Right? That's all I could get out. And he looked at me nice and calmly, and he said, "No, Matt, there's gonna be fun time." So I did what I could only do: turn my behind around and walk back down to the boat shack and started working on the only Zodiac that we had in there. And then, sure enough, they brought the other Zodiac up, and it was just fine. But in that moment, he saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. And we were there for Christmas, and he gave me a book. It was called NLP for Dummies, Neuro-Linguistic Programming for Dummies. And even though he gave me a Christmas gift, I was offended. I'm like, I'm not a freaking dummy. I'm like, why are you calling me a dummy? Like, I just took offense to it, but I kept the book because I liked him, and it was a gift. And that day when, things present themselves, that day when I released my hero, I looked up on the bookshelf, and there that book was, NLP for Dummies. And I opened it up, and I was like, oh my God, this beautiful science has been right here in front of me this whole time, because he saw in me then that NLP would help me. He knew what it was. I didn't know what it was. And I sought out training to go through the NLP class, and I learned so much by going through that. It takes you through hypnosis, and you learn all this stuff. You learn hypnosis. You learn about how what you say, what you think affects your nervous system. And going through PTS, as you know, Aaron, like it does everything to your nervous system. It destroys your nervous system. And for me to find something finally, because I had been to therapists, I've gone to different therapists, and finding a good therapist is like finding the love of your life. It's difficult because you have to find somebody that relates to you on such a deep, intimate level that you're going to express and share your pain with, and then have them understand. And I couldn't find a therapist to do that for me. Like, I needed to find somebody who, has experience in special operations, who has experience in the military, who's deployed before, who maybe has a background growing up in Hawaii, who has a background growing up through drug and alcohol abuse. I couldn't find that. And I opened that book up that my LT gave me, and I sought out to get, NLP certified. And I did. I became a master practitioner in neuro-linguistic programming. And through helping myself, now I'm able to help other people release their hero to deal with those issues, and also issues of divorce. I really focus on, men and women coming out of divorce because of those kind of issues. Because going through divorce is PTS in itself. You go through trauma, you go through loss, you go through all the same stuff that we would experience in the military. Going through divorce, it's one of the most traumatic things that we could ever go through. And going through it twice, I've been divorced twice because of it. I understand. And that's how I was able to save myself from it. It saved me.
You had said when you're after that moment with your daughter, when you had held her head into the pillow, that you pulled that book back out and dove into it and kind of realigned your brain, and that's where the healing started to come again. Am I right?
Yeah, I looked at it. I'm like, okay, I discovered that the link between mind and the nervous system and the past traumas, how you're able to release it. Like, man, I was able to learn how to go through years of trauma and release it within 15 minutes. Unreal. Like, one of my proudest moments after I graduated from my NLP course was I was a firefighter at Camp Pendleton, and I was working out, and the Wounded Warrior Barracks is right around the corner, and some of the guys would come in, and we'd be working out, and these guys are banged up. These guys are banged up, And one of the guys I was talking to had been into a traumatic car accident where he was a passenger, and this wasn't even in the military. He was banged up in the military, but he chose to discuss a traumatic event where he went through a car accident with his friend, and his friend died, but he didn't. So, of course, survivor's guilt. And within 15 minutes, I was able to heal him of that. It was amazing. I was like, wow, man, like, this didn't only work for me. This works for other people, just through a simple process of reframing. And, it was, there's no other way to explain how beautiful NLP is. And a lot of people don't understand it, but to go through it and understand how it affects your nervous system, that you can reprogram your mind, because basically that's what our mind is. It's a computer. Our brain is a computer, and it's able to be reprogrammed. And that's what NLP does, is it reprograms your mind, and it frees up your nervous system and lets go years of pain in minutes. You want a good example of this? Anthony Robbins is a good example of neuro-linguistic programming. And he does the same thing, but to millions of people. I like doing it on an intimate level. I mean, maybe one day I could reach that, but that's what NLP does. It takes years of trauma and you go through a simple process and you're done. And it includes, hypnosis, hypnotherapy, all that. And a lot of people don't believe in that, but really, this is what I explain as hypnotherapy is. It's a simple meditation. Meditating and hypnosis get you to the same mind state. It's like when you're driving your car down the road, you've been to the same place 100 times. You've been in the same place 100 times, or you're just driving to work. And all of a sudden you're there and you wonder, how did I get here so fast? I don't even remember getting here. That's the state where you're just completely relaxed. That's the same state as being under hypnosis and meditation. And within that state right there, you're able to extract pain and implement joy and freedom. And that's what I discovered in NLP. And I'm trying to say this the simplest way that I can for the listeners who aren't aware or even know what NLP is, without getting into this deep science of this and confusing everybody. But that's really what it is. It's the link between the nervous system and your mind, and being able to reprogram it so you let go of all the pain.
I'm going to say to add to that, because you and I in our conversation, I am a practitioner, was an active practitioner, as well as doing biofeedback muscle testing is how I did the NLP. But I always say it is to define our emotions and body language through the experiences we have. And simply, it's to just realize, let's say if you, Aaron, and I are at dinner, and Aaron is expressing something very passionately about something of his past, or even something that's current. It's to understand Aaron's expression through his body language, the word choices that he uses. It can be eye movement. There's many different things, and to see where and how is the trauma, to put it simply, where is it at? Where is Aaron holding it? Is it in the amygdala? Is it in the mind? Is he holding it in his chest? Is he holding it in his back? Because, Aaron, if you were to say, I've got constant back pain, it's something to where not every symptom or situation or disease a person experiences, there is an emotional problem there. That's something that I learned. It's just absolutely. It's understanding what the person is constantly saying over and over again. Even if it's being said differently, the message is always the same.
Mm-hmm. And it's recognizing patterns, because that's one huge thing about NLP is recognizing the patterns. And you mentioned, eye accessing is a great one. You can because that's the science of it, right? When you can watch people's eyes, wherever they go, it's going to tell you what part of their brain they're accessing. Are they, and it's all your senses. Are they accessing a memory that's created? Are they accessing memory that they're remembering? And it's visual and audio cues. Like if I was to ask somebody to describe their best vacation to me, describe that to me, and they come and they say, oh, it was great. The people were really welcoming. You can walk around and people would just like to talk to you. It felt like home. Bam, I'm locked in already. They're an emotional person. They like interaction and relationships. So I'll use that in a relationship. If you want to go on a date with somebody, for example, and you want to go to this nice restaurant, but your partner is like, man, last time I went there, nobody treated me nicely. Like they didn't even acknowledge me. By knowing that, say, hey, honey, how about we go to this place here? Last time I went, man, it was so welcoming. They brought me in. They treated me like family. They sat me down. They brought me my water. They asked me if I needed anything. And it's like I didn't even want to leave there. By knowing that, what NLP does, it allows you to enter that person's world and see things through their eyes and be able to relate to them on such a deeper level. Even in business, how you want to relate to your business partners. How do they react? What do they see? Are they visual? Are they auditory? Are they kinesthetic? Where do they lie in their senses? And by knowing these aspects of them, you're able to enter their world and create a better relationship, and also help people get out of that pain. Because, everybody says, like, nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. And once you enter that person's world on such a deep level where they absolutely know that you do care about them, you're able to help them on such a deeper level. And that's what I love about NLP, is it gives me that access to be able to relate to them on such a deeper level. They're like, man, nobody's ever listened to me like this before. And we all want to be listened to. We all want to be understood. And we all want to be happy. And that's what I love. That's what it's all about
right here. You came back and you had some severe issues that affected every aspect of your life, and to be able to find something like NLP to help yourself, but also now you can help other people. That's probably some of the most meaningful stuff. And it's why this, I'm glad you guys kind of touched on it like you did, because one of the questions I wanted to ask was, for anyone who might be listening, veteran or non-veteran, anyone really, because post-traumatic stress can affect everybody. It doesn't have to be, someone who just served in a combat environment. So what advice would you have for someone battling PTS? Because I'm sure there are other forms of therapy, but I'm just curious on your thoughts on that question of what's the best way to deal with these demons.
I love it. A buddy of mine, Jason, we were talking, and he was a East Coast team guy. He worked in the CIA for a bit, and we had a discussion about PTS, about the warrior mindset of being in the military, and why so many guys and men and women in the military are taking their own lives right now. And this is the real raw answer right here. It's ego. A lot of people may not like that, but it's the truth. It's ego. It's the stigma that comes along with it. What are people going to think about me? What are they going to think if I ask for help? How is it going to look? How's it going to look to my family? How's it going to look to my business partners? How is it going to look to my children? How's it going to look to my wife? Because that's what it was for me. I'm married twice, going through PTS, and I didn't want to admit.
You were scared of being vulnerable, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to be vulnerable. And that's what it all comes down to, is how is it going to look? Once you get past that and you allow yourself to be vulnerable, because one thing I've learned, and I'm about this, going through this time in my life, is that vulnerability is true power. That's where the true power lies, because everybody can look good. Everybody wants to look good. Instagram, everybody's TikTok, it's all about looking good. Nobody wants to look bad. But it's when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and be real, that's when we're understood. That's when we really open up and we can be approachable. And that's when the healing starts, is to allow ourselves to get over the ego, to be vulnerable, to open up, and allow yourself to once again be powerful, to once again be happy, to once again be secure, and once again be able to not only give love to yourself, but give love to others and also receive it.
Yeah, I love that. And it'll show such a different side of a lot of people, because especially in the military, as you know, vulnerability is not something that is embraced, because especially if you're a leader of, sailors, soldiers, Marines, whatever, being vulnerable, you keep that to yourself. You keep that locked down, because it can be a sign of weakness. And when you come back to the real world and you're dealing with real people who aren't in that environment, vulnerability is a huge thing. So I love that advice. I love the way that all tied together with accessing your vulnerability, because you'll learn a lot about yourself. I can speak firsthand to that just by me getting into the acting space. And that was kind of a huge therapy for me. I didn't really get into the NLP stuff, which I'm going to look at it now after we've discussed it so much, but the vulnerability is such a key point.
It is. And, I really want the listeners to hear that is get over the stigma, because that's the way, that is the only way that you're going to be able to set yourself free and, be able to release your hero. And I'm talking to, all my veteran brothers and sisters, first responders out there, firefighters, police officers, nurses, doctors that deal with more trauma than the regular public is used to being exposed to. I was driving down the road here in Hawaii the other day, and there was an ambulance out to the side of the road, and there was a vehicle accident, and the paramedics were covering a body. And I looked at that and I'm like, they're experiencing trauma right now, and they see that every day. So I know that there's a lot of my brothers and sisters right now that hopefully they're hearing this and they're listening to me, that I went through PTS for 10 years, and it wasn't until I allowed myself to be vulnerable that I was really able to release my hero and set myself free. So just really want to put that out there.
I think where most people, through my experience, have had the misconception of what PTS is all about is that it has two extremes. One, a person can become overly aggressive, loud, and mean, scary. Or the flip side would be recluse, very hidden and withdrawn. But I believe most people, especially during a climate that we're in right now and that we have been for, if not the last 20 years or longer, post-traumatic stress can be channeled even through the most lighthearted human behavior: shopping addiction, drug addiction, alcoholism, controlling, abusive behavior, verbal abuse, bullying. Post-traumatic stress can be channeled through any form of measure of behavior, and it has its certain levels of intensity. But once again, there are not just two. It doesn't mean that someone that's irate or determined as being crazy is just post-traumatic stress, or someone that's recluse and being perceived as being a doormat or a pushover. Those are two different ends of the spectrum, but there's a lot in the middle of how someone can channel that. And then also the other thing is the misconception of addiction, whether it be drug or alcohol, sex, violence. It's usually an escape. What is the person escaping from? I'm sure you can concur, Matt. What I learned through NLP is, say, someone who plays video games and they're constantly playing war or graphic or things that have a lot of killing into it. What happened to them? Not everything is defined by what it is, but everything that we do or don't do does have a meaning. The question is it can be very, very simple, or it can be very, very much deeper. I just believe it really needs to start with ourselves, knowing who we are, getting the healing that we need as individuals to understand the nature of ourselves, what makes us tick, what makes us operate, what are our limits, what are our barriers, what is our law as human beings? What do we believe is our law? To be alone, to be in a relationship, to be in a business relationship, and then to express those truths immediately with someone else so that there is not this blame game. I just had a conversation with two people on a conference call yesterday, and I said, when something happens in your life, when you believe someone has harmed you, victimized you, it is not their problem first. It is your problem first to address it. Why? Because you gave them law over your life. You allowed the person the experience in a situation in your life. So since you gave law to that individual or group of people or husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, or child, whoever it is, what was that law that you granted them? What was the permission? And then if you as a person felt offended, if you felt betrayed, if you felt even in a positive way loved, what happened through your choice in gifting that opportunity to someone else that has allowed you to feel either uncomfortable or comfortable. But our law starts with us, and it's taking full responsibility of the decisions we make.
You nailed it right there, is taking responsibility. You ended that beautifully, Stephen. It's about taking responsibility. Will Smith put out a great video a while back about him and his wife having some issues, and he came to the conclusions, like he told her, it's like, I'm not responsible for your happiness. I cannot be responsible for your happiness. Each of us individually, personally, is responsible for our own happiness. And once we realize that, it's a lot easier to, one, not take on those laws of other people that want to, inject their lives on us, like, their self-doubts, their patterns of their false patterns of disbelief in themselves, lack of self-love, fear, and you touched on, going back to the patterns that we guys with PTS going to gambling or womanizing, sexual promiscuity, drug and alcohol abuse. Many times those work, when you're going through situations like that, you fall right back into what you experienced when you were younger. What was it that my parents did? What was it that those who loved me, those people who loved me and cared for me, quote unquote, what did they do? And you fall right back into that. And then we're just falling, like, as you said, into their law, how they lived. And once we are able to see that that's what's happening, we discover the pattern. I came up with an acronym that I use, and it's called I-ARM. And, I arm myself. The first thing you do is you have to identify what it is. What are the patterns that you're falling into? And then you become aware of it, because once you identify it, you're aware of it. Once you're aware of the pattern, you're able to clearly recognize it when it starts happening. When you start going down that road again, hey, I'm doing the same thing I did before. I'm recognizing this. Then once you go through those steps, then you're able to modify your behavior. You're able to change. You're able to rise above those things. And, that's one thing I use for myself. That's one thing I tell my clients, like, have you been arming yourself? Have you been arming yourself? What are you doing? What are you doing to change? Or are you falling right back into the same patterns that you fell into before, because you're experiencing pain, you're experiencing loss, you're experiencing trauma? This morning I was meditating as part of my morning ritual. And as I was meditating, I'm in Hawaii, and a mosquito landed, and it bit me right by my ear, my left ear. And I thought about that. I was like, whoa, okay. When we're in their space, when we're meditating, when we are the most calm, when we are the most happy, those mosquitoes start coming around. They start biting you, the negativity, the thoughts and the fears of other people when things are going well for us. And the best way to stay away from those mosquitoes are to be around people who are positive, who believe in you, who lift you up, and who fuel your fire. And that's one of the best ways to make sure that you're arming yourself. That, if you are going through PTS, you are going through divorce, you are going through trauma, that you focus on these things that keep you from going back into, as you put it, the laws and the rules of others' false patterns that we decide to take on.
And while you were sharing that, Matt, and then to add even for Aaron, I pulled up a chart of NLP. So neuro is the nervous system processing our experiences. So it's thought. Linguistic is
Yep.
the communication systems through which our experiences are given meaning. So what you see with
Yep.
the sounds, feelings, taste, smells. And then programming is how we communicate with ourselves. So
Yep.
what I got through what you were sharing as well, Matt, is it's all about going and finding out what are they tasting, what are they thinking, what are they feeling, all the above. And then I don't know what your techniques were like, Matt, but for me, I would always start off of how does that feel to you? What do you see? What does it sound like? Does it feel real? Does it feel like yours, your law, your program, your choice, or does it feel, sound, look like something that you learned from your mother, you learned from your father, you learned from a job experience? So it's just going back to the nucleus, the emotional nucleus of where it began. And that's why most of the time with therapy, why people just really have a disbelief that it works, or not so much into the confidence of it, is because through my own experience, therapy, psychotherapy, or just even therapists go back to the the mental or emotional mental aspect. But I never really felt that a therapist could get to the root, the genesis of the problem. But also there were times I wasn't really connecting to it and it wasn't the right time. So I'm not blaming and don't suggest that someone should always blame a therapist. I believe it can be helpful to those who really believe that that is for them at that moment. But at the same time, I don't know if you ever heard, just to add, EMDR really helped too, Matt.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I like everything that you're saying. Like you're nailing it, because, that's the thing about NLP is what's different between NLP and therapists. And I have a therapist now. I love the guy. I actually found a Vietnam vet, and a lot of times we go in there and it's just like we just sit and talk to each other. We just have a conversation. He learns from me just as much as I learn from him. We share a lot of different ideas, and he's like, "No, I never thought about that before." And the difference about NLP coaching different than therapy is that therapy goes into the past. What happened in the past? Coaching and NLP, it's able to go to the root, but not stay in the root, but forward pace everything. Forward pace it. Like, how does that look for you in the future? How does that feel for you in the future? And one of the things I love about NLP is once you get to the understanding of how that person sees the world, what their to use an NLP term is model, what their model of the world is, you're able to relate to them. Because in therapy, that's one thing I think that they miss. Is what does your world look like to you? I've never been asked that. What does your world look like to you? They ask me how I feel about that, but what does it look like in the future? How does it feel in the future? What do you see for yourself? And those are the things that we need to really look at, because it's good to go back and look at that stuff and know the root, but also how are you gonna take that forward in your life? How are you going to be able to grieve and take the challenges and the empowerment that you've gotten from those instances and be able to move forward and empower yourself and be able to lift those people up around you? Because we all have people in our lives. I got my girls, people are married, they have beautiful relationships, but it's also about fueling and lifting other people that are around us, which is, the reason that you're having this show right now with Aaron and I, is to lift other people up, to empower other people, to give people a purpose, to let them know that they're not alone in their struggles, and that we only get there by able to rise ourselves and come up out of that. Does that make sense?
And I want to add to that. I want to play this clip from your Instagram post about my why.
Morning, everybody. How you doing? Matt Grace, retired U.S. Navy rescue swimmer, professional firefighter. I want to share with you this morning, as I watch the sun come up, my why. Why am I here doing this? Why am I doing these videos? It's so others may live, so you can release your hero. For 10 years, I suffered from PTS. And there was a moment when I knew that if I didn't release my hero, because I'd been a hero for everyone else, if I didn't release my own hero, I would not be able to save the life of my family. It got that serious. And I had to take extreme action. And I changed a lot of things around, and I learned a lot. And now I'm here sharing that with you, so you may live, so you can release your hero. Hoo-yah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah, it's making me tear up because it's absolutely true. Absolutely true. You know, the rescue swimmer motto is so others may live. And it's going through all this, it's my responsibility. It's my responsibility to lift others up, to help those around me. Because if not, what are we here for? Not ourselves.
You had wrote, I was everyone else's hero, but I wasn't saving myself. Now my purpose is to help others release their hero like I did, to let them know that we can rise above PTS. We can rise above divorce and be the fathers that our children need and co-parent successfully after the pain of loss.
Amen.
That's what you wrote.
Yeah. That's my purpose. That's my purpose. It's, you know, when you hear your own words coming back like that, it makes me want to sit down. It does. It makes me want to sit down and just be thankful and appreciate, you know, we don't appreciate ourselves enough. When you did that for me, I just looked back through my life. I looked back through my life and I was able to see just how far I've come, because we always laugh, right? We always want to celebrate other people. But how often do we celebrate ourselves? And I'm extremely proud of myself for making it through all of this. And I'm thankful for all of that. And I just want to show other people what's possible. What is possible out there after divorce? What is possible after PTS? What is possible after trauma? What's possible is happiness. I tell my daughter, you know, we were talking the other day and she was crying. And I said, honey, it's okay to cry, because she didn't want to. She didn't want to cry. She was holding it in, but I could see it. I could see it. When as parents, as dads, you know, it's our job to know how our children are feeling. It's our job to know what they're going through, because we've been there. And I said, honey, it's okay to cry, because what's on the other side of your cry is you're happy. Your happy is on the other side of your cry. And, you know, where I'm at now is I'm on the other side of my cries. And I just want to, you know, help others so others may live, so they can release their hero. So thank you for playing that for me. That was very unexpected. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you had a real NLP moment. That was an NLP moment.
Yeah, right there. Yep. And I was able to see all of it, to see the whole journey, and to forward pace this, because I'm not done. I'm not done with this. I have a long way to go. I'm just starting. You know, I'm just starting. The fire is burning bright right now. And there's a lot of people, especially right now, we're all isolated. There's people right now that are in pain, and I get it. So yeah, thank you. That was very humbling and very, you know, happy moment for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Very welcome. Aaron, you have anything?
No, I mean, I just appreciate Matt coming on and sharing his story and, you know, being open and vulnerable. And when we were talking yesterday about overcoming post-traumatic stress and finding purpose to move forward, and, you know, for the people who come back from a traumatic experience, especially a potentially deadly one, when you make it back, there's a reason. And I feel like we have a responsibility to do something amazing with our lives, to honor the memory of those who weren't as fortunate as we were. So that's something that I talk about a lot, just because it's special to be able to use tragedy for the purpose of good and to change other people's lives. So, as there's this one saying from Shakespeare's King Henry V speech, I think it was 1598. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers, for he who sheds his blood with me shall forever be my brother. And that's what you are, brother. So thank you for coming on. It's a special story you have to share, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Amen, man. Thank you. As you were talking, I want to highlight my brother, Scott Cooper Dayton, who was taken in Syria not many years ago. He was, a lot of people know a little about what's going on over there, but he was an EOD technician, senior chief, Scott Cooper Dayton, one of my brothers. And, I put his picture above my door. So every day before I leave, he's one of the faces that I see as I'm walking out. I see his face. I have pictures of my two girls. I have pictures of my grandfather, all the people who mean the most to my life now, and those who have passed on. But, thank you, Aaron. Definitely brothers, man. It's like, it's the band of brothers and sisters. We can't leave them out either. It's true. Those who have served will always keep serving, and it's just, it's what bonds us. And it's something I don't want to exclude civilians in any way, but it's different. We've been through experiences together, no matter if we're in different forces, like different branches, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard. Now we got the Space Force going on. It's going through those rites of passages, going through extreme environments, passing our limits to go further. We all know that we've all experienced that on some level. And, thank you for that, Aaron. Love you, buddy.
Hurrah. And just so everyone knows, the Marines are always going to be the best.
Love it.
Matt, where can everyone find you?
It's that military banner. Everyone's always better.
Yeah, the military banner, man. It's something that I love about that. Can't leave out the Army. I love Army. But you can find me at Release Your Hero on Instagram. I have a private Facebook page, also Release Your Hero on Facebook. And you can also email me at releaseyourhero@gmail.com.
Any last shout outs you want to give, Matt?
Yeah, I want to shout out you two, for giving me the opportunity to come on here to share my story, to help others, release their hero. Definitely a shout out to my girls, Ariana and Keola.
Oh, you got a home here with us, Matt, and please let us know when your book is going to officially come out. And if you do need help with editing at all, I do have a childhood friend. She, Alicia Pazzoni, she does my editing from time to time when I need her, but she's worked for the government, and she's got much experience in book publishing, editing. So just let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen.
Aaron, any closing thoughts?
No, that's it. I'm grateful for Matt coming on and sharing the story, but I'm looking forward to reading the book when it comes out. And like you said, we're family and we're always here for you.
Hoo-yah.
All right, Matt, hold the line. Thank you, everyone, for joining Aaron, Matt Grace, and myself today, live on air with Stephen Cuoco on Power 98.5. And stay tuned.
on your socials and let's connect.
Empowering listeners from the US to the UK. Live on air with Stephen Cuoco.